My name is Elena. I'm 42 years old. And I think I might have stayed in love with a memory too long. It's strange how quickly your body can register a truth your mind isn't ready for. Like how a few weeks ago, when David kissed me goodbye on his way to work, I flinched. Just a little. He didn't notice, or maybe he did. It's hard to tell with him lately. But I felt it. My own skin recoiling from a man I once ached for. That kiss used to mean something. It used to warm me from the inside out. Now it feels like someone brushing crumbs off my mouth. Absent. Mechanical. Perfunctory. I haven't told anyone that. Not even my sister. Not even my best friend. And I sure as hell haven't told David. That's the part that eats at me. That quiet knowing. The awareness that something sacred slipped out from under us while we were folding laundry or watching Netflix or arguing about who left the freezer open. We've been married for 16 years. I was 26 when we met. He was 32, impossibly charismatic, magnetic in a way that drew people to him without effort. I remember thinking he looked like a man who could hold the whole world in his hands and still make room for me. And in the beginning, he did. He used to watch me like I was a discovery. Put his hands on my waist in the middle of making breakfast just to feel me laugh against him. We'd kiss for no reason, long, lingering kisses that made my knees buckle and made us late for work. Once, on a rainy Sunday, we stayed in bed until dusk. Didn't even talk much. Just touched. Just existed near each other like two ends of the same wire. But time is tricky. It doesn't take things away in one big crash, it wears at you. Erodes you. Quietly. Gently. Until the version of you that used to giggle in the kitchen is now just trying to remember if you bought dishwasher pots. Until his hands on your back feel more like a prompt than a desire. I still love him. I do. I just don't know if he sees me anymore. Not really. Not beyond the role I play. The mother. The scheduler. The partner in the logistics of life. We have a daughter, Ava. She's 15 and smarter than either of us combined. She's also the reason I held on as long as I did. I wanted her to grow up seeing what love could be. But somewhere along the line, I realized I might be teaching her how to disappear. It was my mom's birthday the night it hit me. July 10th. She turned 69 and insisted on a dinner party at her place. David was late again. Work emergency, he said in a text. No punctuation, no warmth. Just those two words. I set the table, poured wine, smiled until my face ached. When he finally walked in, he kissed me on the cheek. Not a real kiss. More like a press of lips to skin, disconnected from any real feeling. His cologne hit me too hard. He smelled like someone else's husband. I stood there, blinking. My mom turned up the music. Ava danced in the kitchen with her cousins. And I felt this pang like I was watching a scene I wasn't really in. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting it to be a group text or a reminder. But it was Ava. She'd gone out back to take a call from a friend and had come back inside, unnoticed. Her text said, "Come outside." So I did. I found her standing at the edge of the yard, arms folded, biting her lip the way she does when she's unsure whether to speak or not. "What's going on?" I asked. She looked up at me, eyes clearer than they should have been for 15. "Mom," she said quietly, "get out of the house." My heart caught. "What?" "You're not happy," she said. "You pretend like you are, but you're not. I see you. And it's not okay." She didn't mean the house, not literally. She meant the life. The slow suffocation. The self-erasure I thought I'd hidden better. I stood there under my mother's string lights, hands trembling slightly, stomach hollowing out. Because I realized something right then, something sharp and gutting. She was right. I had been trying so hard to stay, to fix, to believe. I hadn't even noticed how far I'd drifted from myself. The exact moment something changed? It wasn't when the sex went quiet. Or the hugs turned stiff. Or the compliments stopped. It was right then, with my daughter's voice breaking the illusion I had worked so hard to maintain. It was the moment I realized she could see what I had been refusing to. And maybe I had been waiting for someone else to say it out loud so I wouldn't have. David is a paramedic. He's good at handling emergencies, fast, efficient, steady. He knows how to stay calm when people bleed or scream or collapse in front of him. He's saved lives. He's seen things I never could. And maybe that's part of it. He spends his days in chaos. So when he comes home, he wants peace. He wants ease. He wants something soft to fall into. And for years, I was that. I folded myself smaller to make the landing gentle. But I've grown tired of being his soft place when I'm the one unraveling. Last Wednesday night, I was chopping onions for dinner. He came up behind me, slipped his arms around my waist, and pressed his mouth to the back of my neck. "You smell like garlic and soap," he said, voice low, teasing. I forced a smile. My hands stayed on the knife. I didn't lean back. He noticed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I said too quickly. "Just tired." He didn't push. He never does, not anymore. And I think that's what hurts most. It's like he senses the distance but won't ask about it. He just touches me instead, hoping that will fix things. Later that night, in bed, he reached for me again. His hands were warm, familiar. He kissed my shoulder, my collarbone. I let him. I always do. And I hate how I lie there, going through motions I used to crave. But my mind was far away. On Ava. On my mom. On the text that hadn't left my chest since she sent it. "Get out of the house." When he moved to kiss me fully, I turned my face just slightly. Not enough to reject him. Just enough to redirect. He froze. A beat passed. Then he rolled over onto his back. I heard the breath leave him. That long, slow kind that's half exhaustion, half defeat. "Okay," he said softly, staring at the ceiling. "Got it." I wanted to scream. Not because he stopped, but because of how he stopped, like it was a transaction declined. Like he tried and I refused, so now we sit in silence again. I sat up. It's not that I don't want." He cut me off, voice flat. "You don't have to explain. I get it." But he didn't get it. He never does. Because to him, love is doing the laundry. Making sure my car's oil is changed. Kissing my neck while I cook. Initiating sex every few weeks to prove we still can. To me, love is asking how I am and really waiting for the answer. It's saying, "You seem quiet lately, talk to me." It's watching me and noticing. I want to be known, not just held. 2 days later, we got into a stupid fight about something small. I forgot to buy paper towels. He sighed, muttered something about never having what he needs in his own house. That was it. That's all it took to snap something loose in me. "Do you even hear yourself?" I said, turning toward him in the kitchen. "You come home, grunt hello, expect me to read your mind, and when I don't, I'm somehow failing you?" He blinked. "It's not about the damn paper towels, Elena." "I know it's not." I yelled, louder than I meant to. "It's about everything we never say anymore." The silence after that was unbearable. He finally looked at me, really looked. "What do you want from me?" And God, the answer felt so big and so simple all at once. "I want you to see me," I whispered. "Not just touch me. Not just feed me. See me. Ask what's going on inside my head. Ask why I don't laugh the way I used to. Care." He opened his mouth. Closed it again. "I'm trying," he said finally. "But I'm not built like you. I don't do words like you do. I show love how I know how." And I believe him. That's the worst part. I believe he's trying. But sometimes, two people can try with everything they've got and still be speaking different languages. I walked away that night. Not out of anger. Just self-preservation. When I crawled into bed later, he was already asleep, or pretending to be. His back was to me. The space between us felt like a canyon. I stared at the ceiling for hours, one hand resting on the place he used to hold, the curve of my waist, wondering if maybe love could still exist even when touch no longer translates into safety. Wondering if Ava had seen more truth than I'd allowed to myself. I don't know when I started bracing for affection. But I do. Now, whenever David reaches for me, My body tenses just enough to notice. And maybe he notices too, or maybe he's just gotten used to pretending he doesn't. It was Saturday morning, late enough to sleep in but early enough that sunlight still cut through the curtains. I was in the kitchen, hair messy, wearing one of his old t-shirts. He came up behind me while I was loading the dishwasher, ran his hand over my back and down, cupped my butt playfully, gave it a light slap. I froze. Not visibly. I kept placing bowls into the rack like nothing happened. But inside, something buckled, not from fear, but from fatigue. I didn't want to be touched right then. I wanted to be seen. David leaned in, pressed a kiss to my temple. "You look good like that," he said, voice warm. "All domestic and dangerous." I laughed. It came out small. Hollow. I didn't know what to say back. He wrapped his arms around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. "Let's go back to bed," he whispered. And there it was. That familiar thud in my chest. The panic. Not because I didn't love him, I did. But because I didn't know how to be close to him without pretending I wasn't disappearing. "I need to finish this first," I said too quickly. He didn't move. "It'll still be here later." I pulled away gently, pretending to reach for a dish towel. "Yeah, but if I don't do it now, I'll forget." He exhaled, one of those long, subtle sighs, like he was trying not to show he was disappointed. "Elena," he said, soft but with a tired edge, "we haven't, in a while. I miss you." I turned to look at him. His eyes were kind, but there was something underneath, frustration maybe. Or fear. The kind people don't admit out loud. "I know," I said. "I miss me too." That confused him. He tilted his head, trying to read between my words. "What does that mean?" But I didn't answer. I didn't have the energy to explain that being with him lately feels like performing. Like acting out a version of intimacy we no longer inhabit. Still, part of me wanted to want it. Wanted to fold into him and let it feel real again. But I knew if I did, it wouldn't be for me. It would be to make him feel less alone. That night, he tried again. We were in bed, quiet, distant, both scrolling our phones under dim lamplight. He turned his off first. Shifted closer. His hand landed on my thigh. "Hey," he said, low. "Come here." I turned to face him. He kissed me slow, deliberate. I let him. His lips moved over mine like a question, like a memory. And I felt nothing. Not revulsion. Not desire. Just emptiness. I kissed him back out of muscle memory. Because it's what wives do. Because I thought maybe if I kept trying, the spark would catch again. But halfway through, I pulled back and mumbled, "I'm tired." He didn't say anything. Just rolled away. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. My skin still warm where he touched me. My throat tight with guilt I couldn't name. And all I could think was, it happened on a Tuesday. Not a special night, not an anniversary or a holiday. Just one of those long, ordinary evenings where everything feels stretched thin. David had made dinner. Grilled chicken, steamed broccoli, rice. The kind of meal that says, "I'm trying," even when it tastes like obligation. He set the table, lit a candle, even poured me a glass of wine, one of the good ones from the back of the cabinet. I knew what he was doing. A small romantic gesture. A reset. And part of me wanted to meet him there, to step into the moment and pretend we were okay. But the part of me that had been shrinking for months refused to play along. We sat down. The room was too quiet. "You've been quiet lately," he said, cutting into his chicken. "Everything okay?" That should have been the moment. I should have opened up. Said something honest, even just a little piece of the truth. But the words caught in my throat like they were covered in thorns. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." He nodded, chewing slowly. "You've been tired a lot." And then I don't know what snapped, the sound of the fork against the plate, or the way he said it like a complaint disguised as concern, but something inside me cracked open like an egg dropped too hard. "Jesus, David," I said, louder than I meant to. "Maybe I'm tired because I feel like I'm carrying this whole marriage by myself." He blinked. "Where the hell did that come from?" You ask me what's wrong, and then when I try to say something, you act like I'm being dramatic. I didn't say that, he snapped. I just made dinner. I thought this would be nice. Yeah, well, maybe it would be nice if I didn't feel like I had to fake my way through it. He stared at me. Fake what, Elena? What are you even talking about? I stood up, pacing now, the flood of everything unsaid pouring out before I could stop it. You want to fix everything with a nice dinner and a kiss on the neck, but you haven't seen me in months, David. You touch me like I'm a routine. You look at me like I'm a problem you don't have time to solve. He stood too, arms crossed. That's not fair. I laughed, sharp and joyless. What is fair, David? Is it fair that I feel more alone sitting next to you than I do when I'm actually alone? He looked stunned. Like he hadn't expected the depth of the wound. Like he thought we were still surface-level broken, fixable with more date nights or sex. You could have said something before it got like this, he said finally, his voice quiet, but clipped. I did, I whispered, throat thick. Not with words. But I did. I've been asking you to see me for months, just not in ways you know how to hear. Then, like a cruel twist of irony, my phone buzzed on the counter. Ava. I didn't pick up. But the memory hit me like a wave, her voice that night at my mom's birthday, her steady, adolescent certainty. Mom, get out of the house. And, for a second, I felt like I was watching myself from the outside again. A woman crying over broccoli and candlelight. A marriage unraveling in soft tones and harsh silence. David sat down again. Put his hands in his lap. Said nothing. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, tears sliding down my cheeks, not bothering to wipe them away. I felt cracked open and hollow. Like a tree struck by lightning. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just tired. Down to my bones. And all I could think was how I'd spent years making myself smaller, smoothing out my edges so our love could fit in whatever box it had withered into. And still, somehow, it wasn't enough. After a few minutes, I went upstairs. I didn't slam the door. Didn't make a scene. I just folded into myself on the bathroom floor and let the sobs come. The guilt hit first. For ruining his attempt at something sweet. For letting Ava see too much. For not being strong enough to fix this. Then came the shame. For recoiling from someone who still calls me babe. For needing more than what he knew how to give. For wanting to leave, even just in my mind. But beneath all of it was confusion. How did we get here? How do you fall out of sync so slowly you barely notice until your daughter spells it out in a backyard under fairy lights? How do you explain to someone you still love that their love no longer reaches you? I didn't have answers. Just a bitter taste in my mouth and a sob catching in my throat. The house has gone quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, not the post-dinner, soft music, clinking wine glasses quiet we used to know. This is a cold quiet. The kind that settles into the walls. That echoes in the spaces where conversation used to live. It's been almost 2 weeks since the blow-up in the kitchen. Since the dinner that turned into a breaking point. We've barely spoken more than the essentials. Did you feed the dog? I'll pick up Ava. The power bill's due. The first few days, I expected a storm. A fight. A confrontation. But David didn't bring it up. Didn't push. He just retreated. Like someone who got burned and learned not to touch the stove again. And that, somehow, hurts more than anger. He still comes home around the same time. Still takes off his boots by the back door. Still drops his keys into the ceramic bowl I made in a pottery class when we were dating. But now there's no kiss on the cheek. No hand on my back. No teasing. He started sleeping with his back to me. Not dramatically, just turned away. Like he's protecting something inside himself I no longer have access to. Ava doesn't ask questions, but she sees it. The way teenagers do. Her eyes follow us when we pass each other in the kitchen. She watches me a little too closely, as if she's trying to figure out if I heard her message loud enough. And the truth is, I don't know if I did. Because now that the shouting has stopped, I miss him. I miss the way he used to touch me like I was familiar and wanted. I miss how he could make me laugh in the middle of my worst moods, how he'd hum off-key when he cooked breakfast on Sundays. But I also miss me. And I don't know how to want him without losing myself again. Last night, I came downstairs after everyone had gone to bed and found him sitting in the dark living room, a beer half finished in his hand, the television off. He didn't hear me at first. He looked older. Not in the lines on his face, he's still rugged in that way that first drew me in, but in his posture. The slouch of someone carrying something they don't know how to set down. I stepped back into the kitchen silent. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me thought if he saw me, we'd have to talk. And I didn't trust myself not to cry again. But the image stuck with me all night, David, alone in the dark, not angry, just empty. He's hurting too. I know that. I've spent so long feeling neglected that I forgot he's probably been feeling rejected. I've been so focused on what I haven't received that I haven't fully acknowledged what he's tried to give, even if it wasn't in the way I needed. I don't think he knows how to fight for us. But maybe, neither do I. I keep wondering if we're both waiting for the other to make the move. Like two chess players staring at the board, knowing the next move might be the one that ends the game. There's a photograph on our nightstand. From a trip to Seattle 8 years ago. He has his arm around me, and we're both grinning, wind in our hair, completely unaware of what life would look like now. Sometimes I catch him looking at it when he thinks I'm asleep. I miss her, too, the woman in that picture. The one who leaned into his touch without flinching. The one who believed love could outlast anything. I've been journaling again. Just a few lines every night. Trying to find myself in the mess. Last night I wrote, I want to want him again. But I don't know how to unnumb. And this morning, something shifted. I watched him pack his bag for work, methodical, focused, and I felt this tug in my chest. Not passion, not desire. Just empathy. Like I was finally seeing him, not just through the lens of what I lacked, but as a man trying to navigate the ruins too. Maybe we both stopped speaking because we were afraid the other would confirm our worst fears. Maybe we both feel like failures. I don't know if that's a reason to stay. But it might be a reason to try. So tonight, I'm going to sit next to him on the couch. I'm not going to reach for his hand, not yet. But I'm going to sit close enough that he knows I haven't given up. And if he turns to me, if he says anything at all, I'll listen. Really listen. Because I don't want to walk away without knowing if there's still something left worth saving. Tonight, I sat next to him on the couch like I said I would. I didn't expect a grand gesture. I didn't expect anything, honestly. I just wanted to be close enough to remember what it felt like, being beside someone I once couldn't wait to come home to. Being near the man who once reached for my hand before we crossed every street. The television was on. Some true crime thing he half-watched. We didn't speak. I kept my body just far enough not to touch his, but close enough that if he shifted an inch, we might have. He didn't. And that was when I knew. Not in a dramatic, thunderclap way. Just quietly. Like recognizing a song you used to love, but realizing it doesn't move you anymore. After about 20 minutes, he got up and walked into the kitchen. I followed, almost without thinking. Watched him rinse out his glass and place it in the sink like it mattered. David, I said. He turned, shoulders stiff, eyes tired. Yeah. I swallowed. Do you want to try? He stared at me, his brow twitching barely, like the question surprised him. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe he just stopped believing it would ever be asked. I don't know, he said. And somehow, that answer broke me more than anything else could have. I nodded. Okay. He exhaled. It's not that I don't care. I do. I think we're too far gone, Elena. I don't even know what we're trying to get back to anymore. That hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was cruel, it wasn't. But because it was honest. And suddenly, so much made sense. The kisses that didn't land. The quiet distance. The half-hearted touches. It wasn't just me. His love had cooled. Maybe mine had too. Maybe I had been clinging to the version of us that Ava still hadn't unlearned. I keep thinking about what Ava said, I whispered, voice shaking. That night at my mom's. Get out of the house. And I realized she wasn't just talking about the house. She meant this version of me. The one who's stuck. Small. Numb. David's eyes softened. I never wanted you to feel trapped. I know, I said. But I did. And I think, so did you. He nodded slowly, like he didn't have the strength to argue. We stood in the kitchen for a long time after that. Not speaking. Not touching. Then he stepped forward and did something I didn't expect. He pulled me into a hug. Not a lustful grab. Not a duty-bound squeeze. Just a long, human hug. Warm. Quiet. Final. I melted into it. Let my cheek rest on his chest like I used to. He smelled like soap and exhaustion. His hand slid up to the back of my head, cradling it gently. And for a moment, I let myself cry. He didn't say anything. Just held me. Like he understood this was the last thing we would share. Not a night, not a kiss, not a promise. Just this quiet holding. At my mom's birthday, I got a call from my daughter. She said, "Get out of the house." When we finally pulled apart, he looked at me like he was memorizing my face. Not because he was leaving or I was, but because something between us was. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight," he said. I almost told him not to, but I didn't. I just nodded. Okay. Later, I watched him from the hallway lying under the throw blanket, one arm under his head, facing the window. He looked peaceful. And I realized, letting go doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to mean failure. Sometimes, it just means you've outlived a version of love that no longer fits. I crawled into bed alone, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel lonely. I felt clear. And in that quiet, the memory of Ava's voice echoed again. Get out of the house. Maybe she didn't mean physically. Maybe she meant, get out of the version of yourself that's been performing. Get out of the pattern that taught you to stay no matter how much you disappear. Get out so you can come back to yourself. So that's what I'll do. Tomorrow, I'll make coffee. I'll tell David we need to talk about next steps, counseling or separation or space or something in between. But tonight? Tonight I'll let this ending be soft. A gentle rupture. A goodbye we didn't speak aloud. A final hug in the kitchen where we once danced barefoot. And somewhere inside that ending, I'll start again. I used to think leaving meant failure. That if I walked away from a marriage, a safe, loyal, functioning marriage, it meant I'd done something wrong. That I hadn't tried hard enough. That I'd broken some unspoken vow to endure. But now, I think leaving can mean something else. It can mean choosing yourself. It can mean finally listening to the voice inside that's been whispering, wake up. The voice that sounded a lot like my daughter's. That night, at my mom's birthday, when Ava said, get out of the house, it hit something in me I'd been keeping buried. I knew what she meant. She wasn't telling me to run. She was telling me to return to myself. And I don't say this lightly. It is terrifying to look at the life you've built, the routines, the walls hung with memories, the familiar rhythms of partnership, and say, this isn't enough for me anymore. It feels ungrateful. It feels selfish. It feels like betrayal. But it's not. Here's what I've learned. You can love someone deeply and still know you cannot stay. You can ache for their smile, their steadiness, their smell in the morning, and still recognize that your needs no longer fit inside the life you created together. David is a good man. He's steady. He loved me the way he knew how. And for a long time, that was enough. His touch was enough. His presence, his provision, the way he would pull me into his lap on tired evenings, it all made me feel wanted. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling seen. I started longing for questions he didn't ask. Conversations we stopped having. A deeper kind of closeness that doesn't start in the bedroom but in the soul, in being looked at and understood. It's strange how long you can go without being truly known, even by someone who sleeps beside you every night. You start to doubt your own loneliness. You think, well, this is just what long-term love looks like. This is what it means to grow older together. This is normal. But what I've learned, what I now believe with all of me, is that intimacy is not a luxury. It's not extra. It's not something you sacrifice for stability. It is the thing. The whole point. Emotional intimacy, Being able to say, I don't feel like myself, and have the person you love lean in and say, tell me more. That's the heart of connection. And when that starts to slip, you can go through the motions for years and not realize how empty you've become. I think David and I both tried, but we didn't try the same way. And when you speak different emotional languages, you start building separate lives in the same house. It's no one's fault. And that's the hardest part. There's no villain here. Just a slow, quiet misalignment that neither of us knew how to fix. And so we let go. Not in anger. Not in flames. But with a tired kind of grace. The last night we spent together, he hugged me in the kitchen. It was long. Still. Honest. The kind of hug that says, we mattered. We tried. We're done. And after he went upstairs, I sat alone and realized something I wish I'd known sooner. Desire is not just about sex. It's about aliveness. It's about being around someone who makes you want to show up fully, messily, truthfully. It's about feeling wanted in ways that have nothing to do with your body and everything to do with your mind, your heart, your weird laugh, your quiet rage, your joy. That's what I want now. Not perfect love. Not fireworks. Just presence. Real, whole presence. Where I don't have to flinch when someone touches me because I know that touch comes with understanding. Where I don't have to over-explain my pain because it's already been invited into the room. Where I don't feel like I'm failing for asking for more. So, yeah, I left the house. Not because he was cruel. Not because I stopped loving him. But because I started loving myself enough to ask for something more. And maybe one day, I'll find that kind of connection again. But for now, I'm finding it in me. In late-night walks with no destination. In breathing without bracing. In watching my daughter watch me and realizing she sees a woman learning how to live honestly. That's what I want to teach her. Not how to stay, but how to listen to herself. How to choose herself. And how to know, without shame, when it's time to walk away.